Okay, so on your test, you're always making sure that you read the question and then you say which strategy. That's always your step. Okay, so read. Give you 30 seconds to read this, and then we say which strategy. Okay, Reese was way on top of it. She said simple. Good? Simple interest. So I equals PRT. Boom. I know that that's what I'm doing on this question. Okay. So Kevin had $3,500 to invest. We need to use that as a which spot? P. He wants it to grow to 4,200. Where are you going to put the 4,200?
You're going to put 700.
Oh, yes, Lane caught it. I'm going to put 4,200 nowhere. It's not interest. It's not principal. Okay, it is what? It is a final. So what do? You actually have to figure out the interest. So interest would be the final minus the start. So Lane had caught that there should have just been a $700 increase in interest, right? 4 years. So that's the time. So what is the rate? Okay. FYI, if I give you a question and it says 6 months, what do you replace time with? 0.5, because it's always in years. So I get that a lot. If I say 6 months, people put in a 6. That's not what you're doing. Okay, you have to make sure it's in time. Okay, on my calculator, I would be doing 700 divided by brackets, right? That make sense? Because you'd have to divide by this and that together. Okay? You should know your answer should be reasonable. It should be a decimal, right? Okay. Good? That's 5%. That makes sense, right?
If I raise 5%, is that right?
Yep. Okay, let's pretend I did this. Okay? Let's pretend I forgot to put brackets on that division. Here's my answer, which is 80%. Does that seem like a good interest rate? 80%? Yikes, no, that's not a good interest rate. Okay. Read, tell me the strategy. Go. Read it, get the strategy. Which of the three? Simple interest. Did you read that part of it? I equals PRT. That's the strategy. Okay, he has 20 grand, so that's the start. He wants to end up with $35,000. That is a final. There's no room for final, so what do we put as an interest? 15,000 interest. The rate, you got to do a decimal, right? How long? Okay, so how long? This would be in years, but the question did say to the nearest year specifically on this one. So then I would answer 17 years before he had enough money. What if it had been a 16.2? Okay, could you answer 16 years? Would that make sense? No. Because you can't round down because you would not have enough money. If it takes you 16.2 years, let's say, to get the 35,000, you can't say rounding that you would be able to pay it in 16 years because at the 16-year date, you don't have enough money. So you would still have to round up to 17. Does that make sense as investments go? The rounding isn't always just to the nearest one. You always seem to have to round up so that you have enough money, right? You can go over the money, but you can't be under the money, right? Number 3, read it, find the strategy. Simple. So I equals PRT. Offering a rate of that. So a decimal. Okay, so this is what I got so far. I had, bless you, P. I left. I had that. Interest. This is weird. I don't have interest. Okay, but I can't really use an I because I can't have an equation with an I and a P involved. Can anybody think of something different to replace interest with? What's a little side formula for interest? How do you calculate interest on a side? What in words? Interest is always the final minus the principal start. So would you be okay if I replaced the interest with 15,000 minus the principal? Would that make sense to you? We always know this little side formula, right? It's on your pink paper as well. You always have to think about that. Okay, so now we're good because we have an equation with only one letter involved. But what do you want to do? Okay, so my first algebraic step would be to do that. What's your next algebraic step? There's p's on this side and p's on that side. What do you want to do? Add 1p. Because I didn't have 1p plus 1p, I had 0.074p plus a 1p, making that. Do you see it? And divide. Okay, let's pretend you were here and you had no idea what to do with algebra. Okay? What is another way you can do this because you're an applied student? Maybe you don't like algebra because you're an applied. That's fine. Y1, Y2 intersection. Okay? Know what you're finding. We're finding the principal investment. So that's money. So think about that. Your window, 10 grand, whatever, right? Because you're thinking about how much money did I start with. So if I ended up at 15,000, think about that. You probably started with something over 10,000 at least, right? Okay? Okay, good? Or do you want me to do the calculator way, or it's good? How many people feel like they would have done that algebra? Algebra people? Yes, there's another algebra. How many people would have just gone to the calculator and done a Y1, Y2? Yep, okay. Those are the people. You are in the right math course. Okay, number 4, reading, boom. These ones are fast. As soon as you see simple, there you just know. Bless you. I equals PRT is the way to go. Okay, principal, 2,000. Decimal for the percent, 3 years. This is just a straight formula. Straight type. Okay, this time I said, what's the rate of return? So how much money did you make out of this? $354 of interest is how much you made. Interest is your make. How much did you put in? 2 grand. Make sure you times it by 100 though. Okay, what if I had asked a question, instead of what is the rate of return, I said, what do you have, how much money do you have at the end of the investment? What do you do then? You would add them, yeah. Okay, so just be careful of what the final question is. Same strategy, but just ending differently. Okay, so we're going to compare these two people. They have the same thing going on, the same start money, the same time, the same rate. Okay, one was paid with just a simple, and one was paid with compound. Don't even calculate it right now. Who makes more money? Compound. Okay, so you might see those questions on your test, just who makes more, the simple or the compound person. Okay, now determine the difference in their interest. So we are going to actually do it. So we're going to use both formulas, comparing the two people. Okay, so everything is with a 6 in there. Okay, can you run on your own there, both formulas? Okay, how did we go with those formulas? Okay, using the formulas is one thing, but now we got to figure out what's happening. So what's going on with the interest, the difference in the interest? So this one is good, but this is actually a final. So what is the actual interest? Okay, so please take off the start. So we would say final, Midori made how much more interest? How much more interest? So I would subtract those two numbers. Okay, so I'm probably going to ask questions like that. Who made more, or how much more did they make? But make sure you always understand this formula gives interest, this formula gives finals, right? So use that this little side formula. We have to use that. Okay, number 6. How many compounding periods are there for, and what strategy would you use? So how many compounding periods? What is it even asking me right now? What is just that question? Just means how many times do you do it? That's all I want to know. So you're not using any formula, just how many times does this get done? 10 years, semi-annually. So then what's just a number answer? 20. That's all I'm looking for in that. Compounding periods, how many times does it get done? Okay, number 7. I see a word compounding. So we're done with simple. We're not using that formula. Do you see any place of regular payments? No, he's just making an investment, not putting money in a bunch. So I figure out the strategy I need. Compounding, not regular investments though. Okay, so $1,000, that's what he has at the start. Decimal percent. Compounded quarterly, so then I divide by 4. And I don't know the time, so that's a variable. Does anybody know something I could put here? Because we need something to go there. 2,000. Because that was half of what he needed at the end, so he would need $2,000. Okay, what are you doing to solve this? Meadow says she's reaching for her calculator to solve this. So you're doing a what? Y1, Y2. Okay. Please make sure you do, when you type this in, you do the to the bracket 4x. Can you make sure that this gets typed in to the bracket 4x? Because it throws it off, because then it would do an exponent 4 and then times by an x, okay? You have to put a bracket on that section.
The 1 plus 0, or 0.037 divided by 4, does the 0.037 divided by 4 have to be in a bracket?
Nope, because it'll do the dividing before the adding, so then it'll just do that for you. If you had an extra set of brackets, it would be fine, but you don't need it. Okay, let's talk window. Window is our time for our X. Let's talk window here. Time is really what X is, and money is what Y is. What's a good time that we went up to? Anybody pick something? 20 years or something, maybe? I don't know. And what do you want to get to on the money height? What's a good window to go for money? We need 2,000 on there, so let's go above 2,000, maybe 2,500. What do you say, Lauren? Is it?
Mine was on whatever it was last time.
Oh, so you just didn't think about it. It just did it for you.
Yep.
Well, mine's at 55,000, so
Yeah, I think it'll work. Gave me a number on the secretary center second. Yeah, 18.82.
oh, good thing I picked 20. I was just a random guess. Does everybody know compounding money grows exponentially? Compounding is an exponential growth, right? We know what that is all about. What'd you say, 18.82?
82.
This question says to the nearest year. On your test, I don't think I write that, so I would be looking for 18.82. This person would be looking for 19 years, but okay. Number 8. Ooh, the word estimate is in there. So what's that probably telling me? Rule of 72 divided by 3. Not decimal stuff, just 3. So it takes 24 years to double your money. On your test, I'm most likely going to have a question about something like you started the investment when you were something years old. Let's say you were 16 years old and you had $1,000. How would you go about this chart if I started like that? What would be your next age? What'd you say? 40. So now you hit 40 years old and then you have 2,000. Right? Then how do you keep moving on charts like this? 64 years old and then you have 4,000, right? Etc. Okay? So know how to play around with charts like that. Determine the actual time. We actually just did a question exactly like this. So are you guys okay if we skip it?
Yep.
Determine the actual time. What are you doing? Boom. Y1, Y2, right? Exactly what we just did. Okay, Barbara invests $7,000 every 6 months. Boom. What's the thing? When you read that question, she invests $7,000 every 6 months. What are you doing? What's the strategy? App, right? Soon as I read that line, I'm making a payment. Okay, do you see how I'm reading that? So we go into our calculator, and we figure out all of our stuff here. So by the way, when in math you have to show your work, this is showing me your work. Just what are you putting into your calculator? I tried to do little stickers for people to put them on their paper, but then I realized people were spending 5 minutes trying to unpeel their stickers, so then I decided this was faster. Okay, investing $7,000, so give me a negative 7,000 on payments, right? Negative, it's coming out of my pocket. If you do something every 6 months, how many times are you doing this a year? Twice a year. So then up to the end, I'm doing it twice a year for 15 years. Twice a year for 15 years. So I really would have 30 compounds altogether, right? 4.7. Compounded monthly. So that's the bottom 12. What is the rate of return? So what's going on with previous? What are you putting there? 0. And here I'm putting future. Question mark. Okay, get me that answer. Okay, so this number is how much money I have at the end. Okay, what's the rate of returns? This is not the answer to that. I need to figure out how much money I made. That's what our goal is, right? We got to figure out how much money I made. But first of all, let's figure out, we would have to subtract what we put in. Okay. How much money have we put in? How do I figure that out? Well, we put in 7,000, but how many times did we do that? Twice a year for 15 years. So I get people who tell me that they put in 7,000. That's not what you did. You put in 7,000 a bunch of times. So does this make sense what I'm labeling for you? This is what I had at the end of the game. This is how much money I was putting in from my own pocket though. So therefore, this is how much money the bank put in as the interest part of it. Okay? So what is the return? The money you made divided by the money you would have had to put in. Okay, so this step here is like a new step on these problems. So please make sure you're understanding that part of it, because you would do that a lot. Okay, you're not going to forget that step right there. Okay, depositing the same amount of money every 6 months. As soon as I've read that sentence, it tells me app. Depositing money every so and so often, boom, app. Okay, so he's depositing the same amount of money. So it looks like the payment is the thing I don't know. Every 6 months, so therefore how many times per year? Twice a year. Twice a year for 4.5 years, or aka 9 times. 2.9% compounded semi-annually, so 2 down below, ended up with 12,000. How much did you start with at this point? Nothing. Okay, there's your info, alpha solve. Okay, what if I asked, this is the answer, but what if I had asked you how much of his own money would he have put in? What would you do? If I had said how much money would he have put into this investment altogether? What would you do? You would take this payment. How many times did you make this payment? Twice a year for 4.5 years. Okay, now I would need you to copy and paste. Let's practice a copy paste. So this payment twice a year, 4.5 years, or 9 times. So blank screen, give me an apps, finance. The VARs is the copy paste menu. Payment, enter, and then it's on your screen. You can times it by -1 if you like, or you could just leave it and just remember that you're working with a negative. Times 2 times 4.5. So you put in 11,320, and then there was the interest, and then that's how you got to your 12,000, right? Okay, so just some practicing tools. Okay, portfolio question. We're getting good at them, right? Okay, so Peter starts investing at the age of 40, and he does a bunch of stuff. And then when he turns 50, things change. So give me the first section, which would talk about the investment from the time he's 40 to 50. Okay, so what he does, he puts $500 in, payment, out-of-pocket money. And he does it quarterly. He puts that payment in 4 times a year. So at the top, what are you putting in your end spot? You had to do it 4 times a year for 10 years. Would that be good? 3.3 started with nothing. And the investment percent part was compounded monthly. So be careful with the wording, the compounded quarterly, or the money is quarterly, but the investment percent is monthly. Okay, did we match with all our info? $23,000 and change. Anybody matching that number? Okay, are we ready for the next section? So this all changes when he's 50 years old, and then he'll do all this until he retires, and then he's 65. So what changed was the percent. 3.8 is now the interest. But everything else was the same. The payments were the same. 4 and 12 at the bottom was the same. Okay, what are you going to put on the N this time? 4 times a year. Over how many years? 15? 4 times a year for 15 years. And then we already have money now because we did 10 years of investing, so we have some money. So I need you to give me a negative in that and then do your copy paste. I need the negative symbol, then the copy paste. If you forget about the negative and you need to insert it later, there's an insert button above the delete. Okay, so you have to copy and paste while that, don't clear it until you've copied and pasted it.
I get 0 on that.
On your what?
When I copy and paste it just goes to
Did
0.
you already erase the future from the,
It's still
did-
23.5.
it still says it in there?
Yeah. Gotta go with apps. Yeah, but then once my
But you want to copy that one,
why did I put it there? Oh, I see.
because you're trying to move this forward. Yeah, there you go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because look at what I did. I copied into the previous value, I copied this, which was the future value going. You know what I mean? Okay, everyone's number was good, 81,000. Matching? Okay, there is for sure one like this on the test. Exactly this kind of format, so make sure you have this all down pat. Okay, so he retires. So he retires at 65 now, and then what age will he be? That's what I'm going to figure out. What age would he be when he runs out of money? So here's the new conditions. He takes out $1,200 every month. So the payment is going to be positive $1,200. You see the switch coming into my pocket? The interest remains the same, so that's 3.8 compounded monthly. And now this is also changed. This money he's taking out every month. So instead of 4 payments a year, there's going to be 12 payments every year. How old will he be? So the N is the unknown. What are we starting with? We're going to do a negative copy of the future value from the, what did we start with? We're going to start with that. And what's the future bank account number going to be? Out of money. Okay, so can you give me the copy paste first? Negative copy paste. Negative copy paste, enter. Good, good, good. 0, 12, 12. Alpha, enter. 77. Okay, so now let's figure out how to answer what age. So this is how many payments happened. So this was monthly payments that we were making. So I'm going to divide this by 12. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go on my home screen, blank screen, apps, finance, VARs, copy and paste the N on my screen. Divide by 12 is 6.4 years plus the 65-year-old was. So now what age would he be? Okay. I'm not sure how I ask you to answer this. What if it would be 71.42 or 71-year-old? What if I asked you to tell me years, comma, months old? What are you doing? 71 years, comma, how many months? What do you do to make decimals into months old? If you're 0.42 years old, how many months are you? What would you do? 0.42 times 12. So if I did this in my calculator, I took off the 71 years. This many years times 12 would make 5 months. Okay, just little things like that. Do you know how to do all those manipulations, right? We did this lots in that one unit when we talked about minutes and hours and things like that. Can you convert?